when your cheerful endurance, when your being consistent has run its course, there's going to be something that happens to you. You're going to find yourself in a certain position. And that certain position that you're going to find yourself is, you're going to be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. That's why you can be happy. That's why you can be joyful when a test and trial comes to your life. Because you know that at that point, if you will start being consistent, then the end result of this is you're going to get promoted. You're going to come out on a higher level than you were when the test and trial came against you. So what the devil means for evil against you, God has meant for good. Now, this is basic Christianity 101 here, okay? This is basic stuff. Unfortunately, there's a whole lot of people that haven't got this yet. When a test and trial comes against them, their reaction is, oh God, what have I done? Oh, what are we going to do now? Oh, we're not going to make it. Is that counting something joy? Is that being joyful? No. Is that person going to come out in victory on the other side? No. And so now then, when the tests and trials come against us, because someone doesn't count it as joy, and they wind up getting beat to a pulp, now then we have to start figuring out why God did that. And so now then our theology starts running amok because we start coming up with all kinds of stuff of why God does that to people. Well, guess what? In just a few verses, James is going to answer that very question. And so James says here, you're going to be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. And by the way, if there's any of you that lack wisdom as to how you're supposed to handle, if you don't know how you're supposed to handle this, if you lack wisdom, ask God for wisdom. And He's not going to give you little bitty teensy tidbits. He's going to give wisdom to you liberally. He's going to give you more than enough to be able to get through this test and trial. And He'll give it to you liberally, without upbraiding you, without reproach. New King James says that it'll be given to you. But he says that there's a certain way that you're supposed to ask this. When you ask God for wisdom, you ask in faith. Now, what does it mean to ask in faith? Well, he tells you with the next part of the sentence, or the next part of the verse. He says, when you ask in faith, no doubting. When you ask God, listen, I want to help you with something here. How many of you, by a show of hands, believe that God is smart? Raise your hand. Okay, good. Okay, that's good. Anybody in here question God's wisdom? Nope. So, if God is really smart, which He is, then we need to trust that He has the ability to get to you the answer. He has the ability to explain to you, to enlighten you, to reveal to you the answer to the problem if you'll ask Him in faith. So when you ask God for wisdom and faith, just believe that He's big enough to get it across to you. It doesn't matter if you're dense or a dunce. That's what those two words, that's what I did. I just went ahead and combined those two words for you. So it doesn't matter if you're just a C student. Doesn't have to do with your smarts. That's why you're asking God in the first place. If you lack wisdom, ask God and trust that He's able to get it across to you. But when you ask, don't you doubt. Because if you doubt, you're going to be like a wave on the sea, tossed to and fro, driven by the sea. And this person that does that, he's not going to receive anything from the Lord because it's being double-minded. So one day you're asking God and you're believing that that you've got the answer to your problem, and the next day, woe is me. Things are so bad. Things are so tough. We just don't know what we're going to do. And you go back and forth like that, the Bible calls that being double-minded, and that man will not expect to, or let him not expect to receive anything from the Lord, verse 8 says. Now, I want you to drop with me down to verse 12. Blessed is the man who endures temptation, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Now then, verse 13. I mentioned to you last week, I'll emphasize it again this week. If you have not already done this, to verse 13 in James chapter 1 in your Bible, I want you to underline it. And then after you underline it, I want you to highlight it. And then after you highlight it, I want you to put stars by the side of it. And then after you do that, I want you to put curly cues with fireworks. In other words, when you turn to this page in your Bible, I want James chapter 1, verse 13 jumping out to you. Because up until this point, James has been talking about temptation. And he's been instructing us what to do when temptation comes. By the way, where do you think he learned this? He learned it from his big brother, Jesus. So, when this happens, you count it all joy. If you lack wisdom, you ask God. And you know this, that what happens is, if you stand steadfast, you're going to have the victory. Whatever that temptation, test, or trial was that was sent your way to destroy you, you are going to wind up getting the victory over it, and you're going to be perfect and entire, lacking nothing. That's the end result. So that's what's all encapsulated in those first 7 or 8 verses. But then in verse 13, he makes something very clear that you have to have help to misunderstand this. Unfortunately, there have been a lot of people willing to help. Verse 13 says, let no one say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God. Or we could word it this way. Let no one say when I am tempted that it is God doing the tempting. Do you know there's nowhere in your Bible that refers to God as the tempter? So let's just real quick here see, you look like a real sharp bunch this morning. So, according to your Bible, when we look at our Bible, who does the Bible say is the tempter? It's the devil. Right? You don't have the devil and God changing parts. So, when you're tempted, when all this happens to you, when a test and trial comes your way, don't say, I'm being tempted by God. Don't say. We looked last week here. It says, the Greek here literally says, do not ever let it come out of your mouth that God's tempting you. Why? Because God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempts any man with evil.